Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. As announced in the last one, we're going to be looking at windows and arches today. Throughout the past 3 years in the Gothic project as a whole, I had the pleasure to come up with some really nice designs for both windows and arches. And I'm going to show you some of the staples today, some of the most used techniques from my builds, including, of course, the rose window from the Moonshade Cathedral, the 1x4 fence window that I've used in parts 1 and 2, the classic pointed doorway arch that I've used in parts 2 and 3, I think. A variation of that doorway arch, a little bigger, a little more curved, that I've used in part 3, which is the cathedral obviously, and then we're going to look at the flex tube arch in the back that I've used on all 3 of my Gothic models. So we're going to start with the window real quick, just get a quick overview of that, and I'm going to let you figure out the rest yourself. Obviously there is the aspect of how the whole thing is integrated into a wall. I'm going to quickly let you take a look at that here. We're going to focus on these for now. The rose window is of course a staple of Gothic architecture and something that I had to include in some model of mine in this whole Gothic project. And I built that using 2x2 brick modified with those ball sockets, and I was able to get a very clean window that is very sturdy in and of itself. It kind of works like a bicycle, a wheel. All these struts kind of stabilize it. And yeah, we're going to take a look at it. It's all in all quite simple, lots of hinges, and then because, of course, the struts have to be centered on the point where the ball sockets meet, I had to offset those by half a stud, which I simply did using, if we just take this bit apart, very satisfying actually. As you can see, just some jumper plates on every other hinge section. And then in between those jumpers, which by the way of course attach to the center tube of the 2x2 brick modified, the tile section has the strut attached, meaning once you align those, you have the tile section here and the strut meets right at the point of those 2 ball sockets. So yeah, the other half is, simply made up of all of those ball sockets, once again connected just using hinge plates, and then to make the curve I used 2x2 curved slopes. So yeah, actually pretty simple construction, and feel free to of course build on that, take that technique to the next level, and if you do, please do tag me in a picture, let me know somehow. Best way obviously is by joining the workshop Discord server and just posting your pictures there. I'll definitely see those, so feel free to join through the link below. Now, it is not a perfect fit. The wheel at the center is unable to house all of the bars, so if you had flex tube there instead, that might be a little easier because you can squish the ends. But yeah, all in all, that's the rose window. Next up, we'll take a look at this beautiful little 1x4 fence window, which I came up with for Gothic Part 1. It was on the corner of the gatehouse by the dock. And it's a very sturdy construction, and you can even have some variety there. In this case now I have the window frame set out of the wall kind of by 1 plate thickness, but we can also, by applying a simple change that looks like this, instead of the downward bracket, make it stick out half a plate. So I'll just pick this apart and then we'll assemble it together, and you can get a good idea of how it's made and how you might be able to integrate it into your builds. Alright, not the prettiest layout, but we can work with that. So let's start at the very center with 2 of the 1x4 fence piece. Quite a common piece, available in various colors, so you can make this window frame a whole multitude of colors, whatever suits your build. And I like to use white at the back to connect it to, so that all the studs that show through the lattice of the fence are white, because that means if I put an LED behind that to light it up like I did in Gothic Part 2, the effect that gives off is really nice with the white. So yeah, I like to use white there, and I have to substitute a few parts here for other pieces. For example, the big brick modified with studs on one side. You should be using a regular 1x2 in white, but I don't have that, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm substituting a few pieces, but you'll be able to figure it out on your own once we get to those parts. So let us start at the bottom with this little assembly, just one of those bricks and a 2x2 tile on that, and we'll plug that into the bottom part of the lattice right there. It connects nicely. You can see we have a flush face right there, and we're going to do the same thing with some. Once again, you should be using a 1x2 brick modified and connect both of the cheese slopes to that, but I've only got 1x1s in white here, so we'll work with that. And you'll put those into the top part of the lattice, right like that. Once again, the face is flush and you have the little point at the top. You can also reverse this and switch out the bottom part for a pointed thing too. That'll look more like I have in my first Gothic build. So yeah, you can make it work in various different ways. And this is where we get to the first optional thing. If you want the window frame to stick out of the wall by a half plate, you use a downward bracket, 1x2 right here, with a plate, or in my case 1x1 round plates to allow me to route wires through there, and you attach that at the center. That'll allow the window frame to stick out half a plate. If you want it to stick out a whole plate, you use a regular downward bracket. And you can see this little gap here at the center is what you're going to get for the window sticking out. So in this case, you can see we've got a whole plate right there between the fence and the bracket, and in this case we've got a half plate. Now you just saw the whole plate offset in the introduction of the video, so we're going to go with the half plate now, so you can see that option too. So we'll put those there. From there on out, we will need some 2x3 plates. We'll attach that we have one stud open at the top. Then we use a small assembly of a 1x6 tile with a 1x2 plate at the bottom and a 1x1 at the top. We'll put that on like so. Same thing for the other side. 1x3 plates, 1x6 tile assembly. And then on the back stud at the top here, we will put a 1x1 downward bracket with 2 plates on top. And you can see that gives us a flush top with a stud at the back to connect stuff to. Same thing for the other side, right there. And that is the top for now. We're going to connect the bottom real quick, because that will make the whole thing a lot sturdier. Just a little assembly of 1x1x2 high upward brackets, 2 plates and a tile, and we'll just slot that in here, just like that. And that makes the whole frame a lot sturdier. Now, for the top, to finish that off, we'll use a 1x2 brick. Let me get closer to you. And a SNOT piece. Same thing on the other side. And you want those to be facing backwards. So the window is to the front, the SNOT is facing backwards. The reason for that being is that we're now going to use a downward bracket, like that, with 2 1x2 cheese slopes and a 1x4 plate. And we're going to attach that like so, and you can see that gives us that beautiful half plate offset at the top and all around the frame, and you know, meets with the black cheese slopes and leaves us with a flat face at the top, which we can just cover up using a couple of plates. And in my case, so that it looks nice, I put some more plates and a tile on there to finish it off, and then you can just build it into your wall, and there you go. So yeah, lots of options with that one. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get to the next one. Alright, this one is a very simple but very clean arch design. Here's a minifig for scale. Fits beautifully through the doorway if you are going to use it as a doorway, and has a little bit of headroom. You can also make it one brick shorter. That'll be slightly more complex, so we're going to go with this one, but you know, I'll let you loose on the wall and you can just mess around with it and see what you can come up with. So I'll take this apart as well, and we'll have a closer look. Alright, you're obviously going to want to start at the bottom with whatever base you're going to put the thing on. All you need is 2 studs on the edges, a 6x1 footprint, and 2 tiles in the middle on top of that. We're going to start out with 1x1 bricks on the studs at the end, just like that. We're going to add a little assembly of a 1x1 brick modified, and a 1x1 by, 5 plates tall brick modified. We're going to attach a 1x3 tile and a 1x2 tile. Same thing goes for the other side, obviously. Then we're going to add a 1x1 brick. Then a little assembly of a 1x1 downward bracket with a plate and a T-slope. Same thing, of course, for the other side as well. Then 2 more of the 2 high 1x1 brick modified. And then we've got a little assembly here of 2 1x2 plates, 2 1x1 plates, and then one of those modified slabs with the flat face. You can also use the other variant of that has the plate section at the bottom, and then 2 plates of empty space that you can fill up with a plate and a tile for the same effect. And those just slot right in here, like so, and you can cap it off with another 6 long or whatever else you want, like that. And that is our beautiful arch. It's all completely legal, looks nice. You can make it shorter for a window, you can make it taller for a window if that's something you wanted to. And yeah, lots of options with this one. Very narrow footprint, obviously just a 1x6. So I think this might be very useful. Up to the next one. This one, if we look a little more closely, is a slightly more complicated version of a very similar arch. Obviously you can make this one taller and shorter as you please by just adding, if we take this off, some more 1x1 brick modified with the 2 studs on the side. And the arch on top of that is really the whole magic. The rest is quite simple. So yeah, I'll take this apart as well, and we'll have a closer look. Alright, of course you're going to want to start out with your base again. In this case we have a slightly thicker footprint than 1 stud, but you need an 8 wide base, and the reason we need a slightly more space towards the back is because we're using a neck bracket here to fill a half plate gap. The reason we need the headlight brick there is because we need that attachment point in that exact position, so yeah, we'll just assemble it and you can mess around with it after that. And put some pictures in Discord if you find any alternatives or better ways to work with this arch. So we're going to start out with an assembly of a brick modified like so. Put whatever tile you want on there, and as many as you want the doorway or arch or whatever to be tall. You put those on the ends, right like that. Next up, another little bracket cheese slope plate assembly like so. 1x1 plate, 1x1 upward bracket cheese slope goes right on there. Next up, 1x1 brick. 1x1 brick modified with stud on one side, and then we've got a plate at the top right there. That goes right there. And now we've come to the slightly more complex assembly, which is made up of a 1x1 tile, 1x1 plate, all on the other version of the slope that we talked about. Then we're adding the attachment point towards the side with the anti-stud of the headlight brick there. We're going to add the neck bracket on here. The reason I'm not using a Technic brick there is because the Technic hole is slightly offset to accommodate the stud in the bottom, so the tube is slightly further up the brick, which makes it, technically illegal. I still use it a bunch of times, but for this video I thought we'd go legal. So yeah, we'll do that. The stud of the headlight brick on the side is sticking out a little further than the brick's width as well, so we need a hole to accommodate that, which is where we can use the Technic brick with hole, because of course there is the little rim inset for the Technic pins, and the stud can just sit into that, which makes this, like I said, all legal. Then we're going to attach that to that brick modified, right like that, upside down. Same thing for the other side. 2 more 1x1 bricks go on the corners. And now we're going to use some more brackets. 1x1 upward bracket, 2 tall and a brick, and a 1x1 by 2 high downward bracket. That one goes right in here, attaches to the top of that slope assembly with the anti-stud facing outwards, obviously. Next up, we are going to use a 1x1 by 2 upward bracket. Oops, dropped it. Along with a 1x1 plate and a 1x1 brick modified, just like that. The bracket is supposed to point up and the brick modified is supposed to point down. Reason being, we're now going to attach the little assembly here of 2 1x2 plates and some T-slopes to the bottom here. And we need it in just that position to line up nicely. And then we're going to take some more brackets, in this case another upward bracket, 1x1 plate and 1x1 tile. And we want to attach that to the bottom right here, once again to that slope assembly. And then we're going to use another assembly of a 1x1 upward bracket, 2 tall and a 1x1 tile, and we're going to attach that to the stud here with the bracket pointing up, and that's going to give us a nice flat surface at the top that we can just continue building on. There you go. Slightly more complex arch, but once you build a couple of those, you quickly get the hang of working with slopes in SNOT techniques. So I think this is going to be useful as well. And now for the last one, let's move on to the, let's call it flex tube arch. This one is obviously one that I've used in all 3 of my Gothic builds, and we're going to take a quick look at that as well. Alright, I'll just pick off one of those side panels, and you can see right down in there, the basic concept is we have flex tube, 2 equal lengths of flex tube stuck on, or well, into the open studs of some 1x2 rounded plates. That allows you to lock the plate into the rest of your wall, and it's all nice and secure, and the tension of the flex tube doesn't really hurt your wall too much. Then, obviously, equal lengths of flex tube, and they meet at the top in a traverse brick. And I like to put some, in this case, flex tube through those traverse bricks in order to ensure that the flex tube go into the traverse brick to the same depth, because they, obviously collide with the bar that you stick in there lengthwise. And in this case, I just put on some 1x1 rounded plates with open stud to put a Nexonite shield on there to make it all look nice at the top. The bricks are once again made up simply like the wall I showed you in the last video, using brick modified with clip and some tiles, bricks and plates. And the only difference is here with the top brick. That one has a stud at the top with a bracket, plate and tile. And once you integrate that, you already saw it just a second ago, that kind of meets up nicely at the center there, so you have a nice point of your arch. Now, to integrate that thing into a wall, obviously, you can see we've got some shit going on the right side. And before we do that, you can make this arch any depth you want. In this case, I made it 5 deep with 2 wide arches either side of a slot that housed that little gate, but you can make it work in whatever way you want. So yeah, really no limits there. Now to the integration into a wall. I like to use an assembly like this, using some tiles and slopes. A mix of, well, it's mostly SNOT construction really, but you get the idea. We're starting out with a classic little base, which is going to put that down. This can be, just your basic wall. Then a little assembly of a brick modified 1x1 by 5 plates tall. Focus doesn't want, but you get the idea. With a grade slope on the side. Next up, a little bracket upward with 3 plates. You can use a brick there as well, but I just used some plates to get the different coloring there. Cheese slope on the end. That just goes on there, like so. Then we've got a plate, brick modified, and a couple more plates, bricks, and cheese slopes. Come on, focus, cooperate. There we go. You get the idea. That one just goes on there. 2 plates on top. Alternatively, you can use 2 of these. I ran out of them, so I just substituted the bottom one with a regular brick modified and those 2 plates. Those just go on there. Then we have a little assembly of a 2x4 plate, as you can see. 1x4 tile, 1x1 plate. On top of that, we've got some 1x2x2 brackets. And then on top of that, you kind of get the idea. If you look at the front and the back, I added some cut tiles to make up that 45-degree angle. So yeah, I just put that in there, attach it like so, and then the top is covered using a little assembly like this. If that wants to slide in, it doesn't. Oh, there we go. Well, anyways, and I put some brackets there either side. You can see right there. If we push that down, so that when I put the Nexonite shield on in this case, there is as little empty space as possible peeking through the sides. So yeah, you can make that work however you want. No limits there. All versatile techniques. And I think that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something from it. Feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe to the channel. Share the video around if you think somebody could use it. And I'll see you again in 2 weeks for another video. So until then, take care and keep bricking.